It's premium, it's heavy, and it's powerful. No, we're not talking about my groin, but something more useful and something which will see some action this year. The ROG STRIX X870E-E gaming Wi-Fi from Asus. Last week we had reviewed the excellent ROG STRIX B850E gaming Wi-Fi, and I had heavily compared it to its X870E version. So it goes without saying that I had to go into the inner work of that board and see why the $150 gap, a price delta. I'm not a big fan of spending more money unless there is a good reason to it, and I am sure you are like me. So, starting with the obvious. Unsurprisingly, the ROG STRIX X870E features a 8-layered ATX PCB, which, as every monkey in the jungle knows, ensure a better PCIe signal insulation, a better VRM heat dissipation, and a more robust overall foundation. Design-wise, well, Asus went all out in every direction. There are plains, there are mountains, there are hills and rivers. This board has geography. It also feels like different regions of the board were worked on by different, well, I want to say artists. It's very Picasso. But overall, in a very loose, spacey inspiration, it kind of works. In chaos, it feels like the Strix find its harmony, and that makes it even more attractive. A bit like, well, an aged Frenchman. RGB-wise, the board stays focused with a beautiful, classy, and imposing 8-bit ROG eye. And if that's not enough for you, well, we have our 4 additional RGB connectors, so quit bitching. The board is powered by our usual LGA 17 18-pin AM5 CPU socket, which provides current and previous Ryzen CPU socket compatibility, which is a great value statement. On the south bridge, we got our 2 ProMod 21 chips powering the X870E chipset, which, despite not providing that many more PCIe 5.0 lanes than available on the X870 or even the much cheaper B850 versions, does bring a heavy set of USB add-ons, and we will see how that affects the overall value statement of this $500 board. VRM-wise, we are dealing with a 24 110-ish amps power stages organized in a 20+2+2 configuration, which is very close to the VRM configuration we had seen last year, and it kind of makes sense because a Ryzen 9000 generation of processor outputs about the same computing of its predecessors, the Ryzen 7000 series. So yeah, this is more than enough to run and even severely overclock any Ryzen processor this board can support. Cooling wise, well, the Strix went all out with a premium 2-segment cooling blocks linked by a beautiful 8mm copper pipe to ensure an homogeneous heat spread. On our main block, well, the wall is rather thick and provides plenty of reservoir to store the harvested heat before letting the radiating roof doing its job. The side block is impressively dense with a bigger focus on the density of the wall rather than on its winglets, which are still here but show a smaller envergure than seen before. Finally, worth noting, both blocks features a now standard double contact design, which provides an intimate and stubborn cooling relief to our Strix power stages. And as a direct consequence, temperatures results are where I expected them to be. With the stock clock R9 9900X running for an hour-long synthetic stress test, the temps stayed generally below the 50°C limit. Thanks to the copper pipe, both blocks stay very close to each other in terms of temperatures, and after the 25th minute of the test, we can observe the heat fully saturating our blocks, hence the slower temperature increase ratio. Most importantly, these results mean that we have plenty of thermal room to toy with, well, processing overclocking. Now, taking into account the ease of operation, the thermals, and the pricing of this VRM, I will grade it at about 8.5 out of 10, which is very, very good, and would not want to see it paired with anything else than an R9 class processor. Anything below, simply a waste. Now, memory-wise, well, the Strix X870E remains in the pack with a 256GB of DDR5 RAM support, organized in the usual dual-channel configuration, and rated to 8 1,000 million transfer per second maximum data transfer. It is good, it is fast, and provides a better single-stick memory argument than seen on its B850 counterpart, because it's all about the single-stick value here. This maximum transfer rate can only be achieved on one single stick. The more you populate your dual channel, the slower they will go. So having a 64GB instead of a 48GB single stick is a solid performance argument, especially if you're going to use this board for, say, a production setup. And storage-wise, well, we have 5 connectors with a widened PCIe 5.0 support, 3 of them against only 2 on last year's model, and 2 still very fast PCIe 4.0 connectors. Now, what to say? There's so much to discuss here. First, let me upload the fact that, well, all of the PCIe 5.0 connectors benefit from a double-sided thermal padding treatment. They are the hottest to run and the ones under a very, very hot, graphics card, so that makes sense. Well done there, I want to say. But man, when it comes to the cooling blocks, there is so much to cover. On the heat relief side of things, it is more than needed to handle whatever heat these sticks can produce. I mean, we have even a copper pipe here, but I fear that the aesthetic disparity might not work for everyone. Now, on the DIY side of things, there are a few remarks to make. Apart from that block, which has a very nice and precise latch mechanism release, well, the other blocks, they all still use screws. I know I'm being picky. It's not such a big deal to have screws everywhere on your M.2 solid state drive heat blocks. But I do like the DIY aspect of having a latch or having a mechanism which allows you to directly access your storage without having to use a screwdriver. It really changed my life in terms of a builder and as a reviewer, which is much more selfish, but that's something I see other manufacturers going for at that price range on every single sticks they have. So I'm really asking you, Asus, to jump on that wagon, on that train, or whatever you want to call it, and give us a fully DIY-friendly storage solution. I do want to notice a very simple and sturdy screwless M.2 solid-state drive locking mechanism, which looks and feels like it belongs. PCIe export-wise, well, the very first thing to note here is that, well, we are losing the dual GPU support that we've seen on the ROG STRIX X870E-E version, and, well, I do understand the concern. At 4 PCIe 5.0 lanes, the second export could not support a high-end GPU card, not with the NVIDIA 5000 series anyways. So, instead of going for an expensive add-on that you and I are paying, this year's STRIX refocuses the graphics performance around one single extremely fast 16-lane going at PCIe 5.0 standard. It is reinforced and designed to carry most of the 4kg heavy 5000 series ROG produces, but most importantly, and as seen on its B850 cheaper version, we now have a much more intuitive trigger-based GPU unlocking mechanism. No more mechanical button, which is one complexity less to worry about, and well, I do like it. I do want to address reports saying that graphics cards were getting damaged as a result of removing the card from those kind of export. All I can say is they did get somewhat damaged here and there, but this is after putting in and removing those graphics cards 50, 60, 80 times, dozens of times, much more, many more times than any of us would do on a normal build. Those are, well, reviewer issues, not so much consumer ones, and I do appreciate the fact that it should not be happening, but it would be so rare. And Asus did address this problem, saying that if anything happens to your graphics card which equates to a real damage, we will cover your graphics card cost. I don't think this is a real concern we should be worried about. Now, finally, the naked export is chipset fed with a rather fast 4-lane at PCIe 4.0 standard, great for, well, anything but a graphics card. Simplified, refocused, and in line with what an actual heavy gamer wants out of a STRIX. Now, obviously, for the nerdiest of you, it would not have escaped you that there is more components than there are available bandwidths on the X870E chipset. Hence, the PCIe bifurcation part of this review that everybody dreads. But it's not so bad here. The only part we have some bandwidth awkward management is when you use any of those PCIe 5.0 enabled connectors. If you do so, you will see your GPU export available bandwidth cut by 2. But unlike the cheaper B850 version we had reviewed last week, the PCIe 4.0 segment of the board have no bifurcation whatsoever, so feel free to use them at will. And that is a rather big positive point going for the ROG STRIX X870E-E against the cheaper B850 version. But most importantly, you can use both this M.2 solid-state drive and the GPU export without any loss of bandwidth as well, making the ROG STRIX X870E-E a very well managed board in terms of bandwidth and give you as much as what the CPU and the chipset can physically handle. Actually, if you go on the more expensive Hero, Apex, or even Extreme motherboard, that's exactly the very same, bifurcation and bandwidth management you will get. So yeah, that on its own. Now, back IO wise, well, this is probably one of the best selling points of the ROG STRIX X870E-E. The bandwidth availability here is absolutely among us. Thanks to the introduction of the dual USB 4.0 plugs, the generational jump between the X670E version and this one is unprecedented. We're going from 140 to 200 gigabit per second combined data swap here. The USB 4 Type-Cs also double up as integrated graphics display ports, keeping the number of display output to 3. Connectivity-wise, again, compared to last year, we see a massive bandwidth improvement, both in speed but most importantly in latency as well. We got the brand new 320 MHz Wi-Fi 7 dual band adapter, which promises nothing less but fiber-graded latency, which will solidly future-proof your gaming experience. Finally, and unsurprisingly, we have the excellent ALC4080 all-digital audio codec from Realtek, which is protected by the insulating shield, as well as the cleansing capacitors you would expect to have. Not only do we have the rich and beautiful 8-channel audio experience, but we also get this studio-graded recording ability, especially great for streamers and content creators of all sorts. Now, it's not every year you do see such a leap forward in terms of back I/O, and actually one could argue that on the past 3 years nothing had been moving much, but the ROG STRIX X870E-E changes that and delivers the best back I/O we could have hoped for. Again, a very similar back I/O you will see on 700 plus motherboard. So very big, good back I/O kudos to Asus for this. Now, front panel connector wise, well, despite all the back I/O bandwidths, the X870E chipset allows for more, including a very fast 20 gigabit Type-C and 3 USB 2.0 vintage plugs. Sure, why not? I'm just a little sad not to see a fast charge on this Type-C. MSI is doing it as early as the Tomahawk series, which is a $300 box or below. So yeah, Asus, that if you could, that would be. Yeah. Cooling wise, we get our usual 8 PWM connectors, including our all-in-one connector, a couple of temperature sensors, but to be real with you, nothing custom water cooling exciting here. To get to that level of enthusiastness, you need to go to the $650, $700 Hero model, and that I find a little bit sad, because when you're paying $500, well, I think we are entitled to some custom water cooling love. Just saying. But as far as troubleshooting goes, unsurprisingly, we are rolling in the gold. The buttons are nice and fat. We got the debuggers. We have the precision of an OLED screen. The back I/O buttons, everything from guessing what's wrong with your CPU to a CPU-less BIOS update. The STRIX got you covered. Now, in conclusion, the ROG STRIX X870E gaming Wi-Fi will run you $500 without taxes, and that's what it used to cost on the previous iteration of this board last year. So that's a statement on its own. If you are looking for a value motherboard, right, for value for your money, obviously this is not where you want to go. You want to stay with the ROG STRIX B850E, which will give you a lot of what this board can do for $350, for $150 less. But that is not what the ROG STRIX X870E-E gaming Wi-Fi is about. What it is about is to show off the very limits of what's available to us in terms of bandwidth, connectivity, and well, premiumship in 2025, because we are not in a world of necessity here. We entered the realm of luxury, curated engineering, and boy, does it look great. It's robust, it's dressed to impress, and it is here to make a statement. This is a STRIX year. Everything below won't cut it. Everything above is not worth it. In short, I feel that the STRIX, the E version here, is stealing a lot of the abilities and features we will see on the Hero, and for a much cheaper cost, we're getting all those premium features. And under this light, the $500 price tag starts to become more rational. In short, if you're looking for, well, premium luxury build, powerful, strong, with everything 2025 has to offer, well, in its best and very best, the ROG STRIX X870E-E gaming Wi-Fi secured itself a very nice front seat on my list, and on your credit card statement as well.